If you've ever stood in the soap aisle of a grocery store, you've probably seen a bottle of Dr. Bronner's. But if you actually look closely at the label, you'll realize you're staring at a wall of text, over 30,000 words crammed onto a single plastic cylinder. Every inch of this bottle is a survival manifesto, drafted by a man who escaped an asylum to warn humanity of its impending destruction. The man behind the text was Emanuel Bronner. In the 1920s, he was a master soapmaker in the prosperous city of Heilbronn, Germany. As the Nazi Party began its ascent to power, Emanuel saw the writing on the wall. He emigrated to the United States in 1929, eventually dropping Heil from his last name in protest of the regime. He begged his family to leave Germany with him. His parents refused. His final contact with them was a censored postcard from his father, which simply read, "You were right." They were subsequently murdered in the Holocaust. Emanuel was left with a crushing survivor's grief. Out of that trauma, he constructed a sprawling, urgent philosophy he called the all-one-God faith. It was a strict demand that humanity recognize its shared origins and unite, or face total, self-inflicted annihilation. To spread this message, Bronner abandoned his conventional life and his traditional career. He took to the streets to warn anyone who would listen. But in the rigid, conformist society of the 1940s, his frantic urgency was treated as a severe mental illness. In 1946, while promoting his teachings at the University of Chicago without permission, he was arrested. The authorities committed him to the Elgin Mental Health Center in Illinois. Inside, doctors subjected him to a regimen of forced electroshock treatments. The procedures were so incredibly physically traumatizing that Bronner maintained they eventually caused him to lose his eyesight. He refused to stay. Bronner physically scaled the walls, escaped the asylum grounds, and hitchhiked cross-country to Los Angeles with exactly $20 to his name. The state had tried to violently correct his behavior. Instead, the experience provided absolute confirmation of his worldview. The institutions of the modern world were sick, and humanity required an immediate, radical intervention. Bronner set up a new base of operations in Los Angeles. He began delivering his sermons, which he called his moral ABCs, from a literal soapbox in the middle of Pershing Square. He immediately ran into a practical problem. People walking through a public park generally do not stop to listen to a street preacher. So he leaned on his family's legacy. He started brewing an incredibly potent, high-quality peppermint castile soap and handed it out for free, using it as bait to gather a crowd. But the crowds were only there for the free product. They would grab a bottle, turn around, and walk away long before he finished his sermon. Realizing he was losing his audience, Bronner made a brilliant logistical pivot. He took his 30,000-word manifesto, shrunk the font down to a microscopic size, and plastered it across every available square inch of the soap bottle. By physically attaching his text to a product people actually wanted, he bypassed their defenses. He forced consumers to carry his radical gospels straight into their homes and read it during their most intimate daily routines. By the 1960s, the cultural definition of sanity had radically shifted. A massive youth counterculture was emerging across California, and they discovered Bronner's soap. The product was perfectly calibrated for this new demographic. It was incredibly cheap, completely natural, entirely biodegradable, and left an intense peppermint tingle. But more importantly, they read the bottle. Bronner's dense, anti-war demands for spiritual unity perfectly mirrored the exact philosophy the youth movement protested for. Word of mouth spread rapidly across the country. Almost overnight, an eccentric, traumatized street preacher found himself operating a massive natural soap empire. He completely ignored the rules of traditional business, gave his product away, and prioritized his message over profit. Yet that total rejection of capitalism accidentally built a level of brand authenticity that but his grandsons now than 5 times the wage of their lowest-paid warehouse workers. They funnel roughly a third of all company profits directly into activist campaigns, spending millions to fund agricultural reform, drug policy changes, and psychedelic therapies. They also maintain a massive footprint in animal rights philanthropy, even purchasing a physical ship for the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society's ocean operations. Decades after Emanuel Bronner's death, his soap company remains a vehicle for his original obsession, healing a fractured world. His 30,000-word manifesto continues to power a multi-million-dollar engine of activism from the side of a plastic bottle.